Your family has been in farming for a long time, but didn't you consider leaving the farm to work elsewhere?
Oh, absolutely. Like a lot of farm kids, the first thing you want to do is run off and go over the hill and see what's on the other side. So I left and I ended up going to UC Berkeley for my undergraduate work.
Sociology.
Absolutely, because I figured that would never take me back to the farm. And my parents, of course, in that day, and it was in the early 70s, they never wanted to come visit me, and they never did. So in one sense, it worked. But while I was at Berkeley, I decided to be an exchange student, went to Japan, lived there for 2 years, ended up working in this little rice village that my grandparents had immigrated from, and that probably was the turning point when I realized I have this affinity with agriculture.
But you didn't wind up growing rice.
No. Well, interesting, too, that I realized rice is an alien crop to me. Here I was, Japanese American. We ate rice all the time. I didn't know how to grow it. I didn't know how to transplant it, but I did know peaches, nectarines, and grapes, so that's another thing that pulled me back.
The book is largely about your relationship with your father. Is he the last farmer you're referring to in your title?
Certainly, when he was farming and when I left the farm, and along with my brother and sister, he thought he would be the last farmer. And he started making some changes on the land, knowing that he wouldn't have that longevity with it. When I came back, I started farming with him, and I realized I need to learn a lot from him. And in that sense, he still was the last farmer until I became the farmer. And so maybe there was a thought that I would be the last farmer, too.
Well, you said you had a lot to learn from him, but he didn't talk much. So how did you learn from him?
He was this very quiet, reserved, stoic farmer, and it took time. I remember when I first came back, I'd had to have the lunches, continuous lunches for 20 days straight to get one full story about the dynamite he used on our farm to clear it.
Now, why do you think he was so stoic?
And the lighter side is, who do you talk to in the farm? Your peach trees and grapevines, they don't talk back. But on the other hand, I think because of being Japanese American, our family was interned and lost everything during World War II because they were Japanese and looked like the enemy. I think he developed certain patterns of behavior where his story wasn't welcomed anywhere.
How was he able to buy the farm after he'd lost everything?
When he came back to the farm, we rented land for a couple of years, and he said he took the biggest gamble in his life, put a down payment on some land. And interestingly, my grandmother and grandfather were both still alive then. My grandmother told him, "You made a huge mistake because in America, they take things away from you." And my dad said, "But this is America where you buy land and make your name." So that was the dichotomy of how our farm began. You
decided to seek out organic certification for the farm, and your father wasn't sure that that was a good idea.
Well, at that point, this was in the mid-'80s. No one was farming organically, and his concern was, okay, you raise this organically, we're going to have all these new problems, all these weeds that I've spent my lifetime getting rid of are going to come back to the farm. And I said, yeah, that's part of organic farming. But even more so, he said, who's going to buy this? Because at that point, the organic marketplace hadn't been developed. And so we struggled the first couple of years.
So why did you decide to go organic?
I thought it would be a way that worked for us on our land, because I thought if I'm going to farm this land, have family, and a turning point came when we had our first child in 1985. I thought this would be a better place for her to grow up in.
To some degree, you were a pioneer of this kind of farming. You didn't have as many role models as you might if you were doing this today, including you, because an awful lot of people read your books and go to your lectures because you have worked a lot of it out.
Yeah, thank you. And initially, it was a trial and error process where you're, digging in old manuscripts, an old book I found, that some farmer was trying these real radical, crazy things, and you go, oh, okay, let me see if I could trace that back to find what little tool or implement he used and if I could recreate it on our farm. So it was a lot of trial and error.